Welcome back to the Pick 199 podcast, episode 61. I'm here with Muzzy,
Yeah.
Nako,
Sup?
and Coxie D.
Hey, boys.
We're back into it. We've got the NBA and some news for this ep. Without further ado, let's jump right into the NBA and have a quick look at where everyone is standing at the minute. We've got the Washington Wizards leading the way in the Eastern Conference and the Golden State Warriors leading the Western Conference. Boys, talk to me.
Yeah, well, Snake, I'd be happy, wouldn't you, mate?
Yeah, well, what can I say, boys? I told you this was going to happen, and I think we paid it out. I think the Bulls are going to finish top of the conference. Well, like, put it this way, the way I see it is we beat the Lakers today, who we thought were going to win the Western Conference. So all of a sudden that puts us like super high up there. But no, good performance today. We're building into something. Would like to see some closer performances against teams like Golden State. But no, we're looking all right.
No, very good.
Oxy D, I know you're itching to talk, mate.
Yeah, look, I just want to talk real quickly about the Celtics, boys. Can you keep up, Snake? Keep tapping that screen for me, mate.
15.
So they're 7-7, so they're on that 50% mark for wins and losses. And I'm not really a fan of how Schroeder's sort of come into the team. I don't think he was really what they needed. I think what they need is a different point guard, to be honest. But they didn't really lose a whole lot getting anyway. So it was probably a good decision when they first did it. But I was just thinking, boys, I reckon, and here's sort of a proposal I'd like you boys to just have a think about for the Celtics. If they were to trade a player like Marcus Smart, potentially to Washington for Spencer Dinwiddie, I think he'd be a great fit for the Celtics. I know he's not a prolific scorer, but I think what they need is someone who can find those passes and somebody who can score when they need to, but is sort of a pass-first sort of playmaker kind of style. Yeah. And I think Spencer's sort of, I'm not comparing him to Chris Paul at all, but I think he's sort of on a similar vein there. Yeah. I think even a Darius Garland from Cleveland would also be good, but I can't see Cleveland letting go of him. But Spencer at Washington Wizards, I think he might be a good addition there for the Celtics if they were to trade somebody like Marcus Smart. I mean, Marcus Smart's great on the defensive end, but I just don't think he's what they sort of need offensively.
And Coxie, me and you spoke about Dennis Schroeder being a terrible pick for them, pickup. Not in terms of he's a terrible player or anything, just in terms of the system.
Yeah.
And we talked about the possibility of Chris Paul being a much better fit, not necessarily because of his scoring, but because of his ability to pass the ball, his ability to control tempo. So to piggyback off what Coxie's saying, what do we think about Spencer Dinwiddie, boys? Do we think that's a good trade? Because if we do, I've got another one in mind.
I don't think it's a bad. I think possibly both teams win out of that trade though too.
Yeah.
I think the
Schroeder would fit right into that Washington Wizards outfit a lot better than he does with the Celtics in a minute. So
yeah, I think him and Bill could develop a good relationship there.
I think their salaries are similar too. I think Boston may have to give a pickup potentially.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a great trade for both teams, honestly. But yeah.
Yeah. Snakeo?
Yeah, I like it. I do. I really do. I don't know if Washington are willing to trade away right at this present time because they're having a little bit of success and haven't had anything for so long.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't think he's going to leave, but even someone like D-Rose, you know what I mean? I think you're 100% right in the style of player there, Dave. D-Rose, someone like that vein.
Well, yeah. I was just thinking though.
I really like what you're saying.
Yeah, but with the Wizards, you've got Bill, and he's sort of your primary ball handler too, and he's sort of plays in that guard role.
Yeah.
I just think they're not really going to miss someone like Spencer, but I guess, as you said, Snake, they're sitting right up top, so they probably don't really want to change anything. But
it's been so long since they've been successful.
Yeah, and I think Smart would be good for them because he's so defensively minded.
Yeah,
and it allows Bill just to be more creative and do what he does best, really.
So my next question is, how do we think Ben Simmons would fit in that Celtics outfit?
I think he'd do all right, but I just don't think if Celtics have to give up Jaylen Brown for him, I think that's a terrible trade for the Celtics.
Oh, 100%.
Mm.
But I'm saying
Terrible
if there's a way that they can work it with picks, Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart, possibly a center or power forward, someone maybe along the lines of Robert Williams.
Yeah, I think they'd have to give him up.
Yeah, I think that would probably clear up enough cap to get Ben Simmons. And I think the peaks would incentivize it because I don't know how long the 76ers can keep holding out.
Well, I think the other thing is too, it depends on what they think Ben Simmons is worth too, like whether or not they want to trade a like for like sort of player, like whether or not they go.
They've shown they basically want the top of the top, but there's no way they're going to get it.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, do they want to get like three players like Schroeder, Smart, and Robert Williams, or like are they wanting to just trade and like get someone like Jason Tatum or something? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like for Philly, they would definitely want Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think as time begins to run out to trade deadline, I think they're going to start be willing to give up more and more in terms of what they want back,
just to have it done.
Yeah, because I think they want to get it over and done with. I think because they're holding out, but I don't think they're going to be able to hold out until after the trade deadline. I think if trade deadline passes, they're going to want to make a move then.
Yeah, and I think for team cohesion, they want this done.
Yeah.
And as far as the style of player you suggested, Coxie, Simmons is the best there is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want someone that doesn't need to score, but can score still inside. Defensively, he's the best.
Because when you get those players on the opposition side, they're double teaming Tatum, they're trying to double team Brown. It just leaves it open for players like Simmons just to charge in.
Simmons is going to destroy you. Yeah. No, I really like that.
I just think, but in terms of the Simmons trade, I think it'd be great if they can get him without giving up Brown. But I think I can't see it happening though. But I know what you mean, Muzzy. They get more desperate with it all.
But that's what I mean. Like, if it comes trade deadline, I'm sure they'll take without Jaylen Brown. If we're honest, there's going to come a time if all teams wait it out. There's going to come a time that they're going to be willing to take second string players and starters that aren't necessarily stars for him.
Picks as well.
They're just seeing that they're not getting that value off the market for him.
Yeah. And I think if Celtics can pull it off without giving away Brown, I think that really elevates their position for this year. Because that's a massive squad. You think your point guards, well, how tall Simo? 6'6"?
6'10".
6'10".
Brown 6'6", Tatum 6'8". Like and then you got your center and power forward.
Yeah.
Like it'd be a massive team.
Well, it'll be interesting stuff. Bucks continue to struggle. I think it's just after championship woes. I think they'll be back up there. Giannis, when he wants to play, he's beaten the top teams easily, and they're just sort of in a lull at the moment with the bottom end teams. Just wanted to get your thoughts, boys, on Cade Cunningham for Detroit at the moment. Had a bit of a lull. Well. He's had a bit of a lull where he's had 3 games or so where he's only scored about 2 points or something.
I think he scored 25 or something today, though, didn't he?
Yeah, but like 3 games before that, he had 2 points or something.
Yeah.
So I don't think one game makes up for his absolute.
Oh no, but obviously if it means that he's stepping back into that role where he's scoring more points again, and more.
I mean, they've played 13 games, and out of 1 game, he's scored over 20 points. I don't think that's good enough for a first-round pick or a first pick.
Especially in a place like Detroit, though, too, where
there's no other
full
scorers.
Control.
Yeah, I think it's tough for him to come in to the NBA from college, and he's a point guard, so everything's going to go through him, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As you said, Muzzy, there's not really. I mean, aside from Jeremy Grant, like he's probably their best player.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's not really a scorer either. So I think it's going to be some growing pains for Cade, especially like there's no pieces around him at all.
I reckon this year's draft class is going to take a little bit more getting into it than past. they
Because
obviously
we've already seen last year's draft classes, like Anthony Edwards. I think he had like 48 points the other night or something. He's been absolutely outstanding. Lamelo's been as great as he's always been. And as Stanko said, I think that this year's draft class will probably take a few years to develop, but it's just seeing that stark comparison to last year's draft class where
it's a little bit alarming.
Yeah, and even the year before and the year before that, like with we had Doncic just totally step up, Trae Young, a lot of these guys that we're not sort of seeing in this draft class. And that was going to be my question: do we think it's a weak draft class, or do they just need time?
I think because they didn't have the college year that they had last, like there wasn't a heap of college basketball played at all.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to hurt your progression. Like, and it's going to take longer to settle into a class that's even higher than the college. Like, so that for me is probably one of the bigger things.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. There's that, and then there's that really good draft class that we had last year too. So whether or not that draft class from last year just set the bar so high as well, is sort of being shown now too. So
I feel like you can't really properly judge a draft class until about 5 years after they've sort of been in the league, because you get players that pick late in first round or midway through first round who just come up and they surprise everyone, like Scotty Barnes for the Raptors. He wasn't too high of a pick, was he? And he's doing better than those boys. So I think it's probably a bit early to call, but as you said, Roscoe, I think the bar's just been set so high from
last
previous
year's
draft classes.
We'll give a shout out to Mobley from Cavaliers. I know everyone talks about Cavaliers got 20 centers, but he's been their standout player at the moment. He's a rookie, and I think he's probably early contention for Rookie of the Year. He's my shout at the moment anyway. So shout out to Mobley. He's been awesome for them. Number 3 pick. Sort of.
Kuminga's been good too.
What's that?
Kuminga.
Yeah.
He's been pretty good.
He's really excelled in that role because they lack so much depth in that role. It seemed to. I think it also helps. Like he plays a very similar style to Draymond, except for he can obviously score a bit better.
Yeah.
Like it helps having him there though, because his defense has just been outstanding.
Yeah.
So I think those two are the exception, but apart from that, it's an interesting draft class.
Just for down at Western Conference, would you there, Roscoe? What do we think of OKC, boys? Big question. They've been playing all right. They've got some comeback wins under their belt. They got a few scalps. I think they got Lakers twice. Is that right?
Probably.
I think this might actually be the wrong move for OKC.
Going too high, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think they should be looking. They should be looking for that easy tank. I mean, they've got all these draft picks from other teams, but their draft picks should be the most valuable ones. So it'll be interesting. I think realistically, in terms of the bigger scale and the bigger picture of things, you can't really go wrong being OKC unless obviously you pick a bunch of scrubs, which the likelihood of that happening with 20 first-round draft picks is so low. So like it's just, I think
the biggest dilemma we have as a franchise, I think we've got two options. The first one is, do we just decide to build around Shea, or do we just pick the best available player that's in the, on the draft, I should say, because you can go down the route of just building everything around Shea, because obviously we know he's a great player, like he's going to be a superstar, or do you, when you're on the clock, do you pick the best available player that's there?
That's the growing pains that 76ers went through. The 76ers, when Daryl Hinkey was the top dog, his option was always pick the best available player. And that's why they ended up with I think it was 3 years in a row they drafted like a power forward or something. Look, it's hard. It's hard. Like some years you have to pick the best available player, because that player might have that potential to just be an absolute superstar. But at the same time, like you said with Shea, I think he definitely has the potential to be a generational talent. And can you throw that away? Like, it's a similar situation where you're asking, like, do you think Dallas would throw away their opportunity to build around Doncic? I know Doncic, he's a bit further ahead and he's a lot more developed than Shea is. But it's that same question, like, should if Dallas were struggling this year, I know they're not, but if they were, should they have just taken the best available player, or should they be trading those picks away to try and build around those players?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think and sometimes it's even a mix of both. They'll try and build, but then they might just pick the best one there. So anyway, let's just hope we don't keep finishing mid-table for 10 years.
But I think the other thing is too, like, for OKC, they've got a young core there, like with Giddy and like Shea, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to tell them, like, you need to start tanking or whatever to get the result that the organisation want. So
and you know what? If it just to go back, Roscoe, like about the draft class, I think even Josh Giddey has just been, he's just sort of quietly working away. I think he's doing really well.
Like I was going to say, he's probably like been a dark horse, like with how dynamic he's been for them.
Yeah.
Like I know Shea obviously is getting all the sort of glory, but like some of the passing and like IQ that Giddy has is just been phenomenal. So
my only other Snake. Okay.
I was reading this thing today. They were talking about Giddy, and the biggest disadvantage he's got at the minute is he's got more missed assists than he does actual assists. So like he just doesn't have the players around him to cash in on how good a looks he's actually given his players. Like,
and he's still putting up numbers too.
Yeah, like his numbers look great as it is. But if they were making half the stuff he gave them, his numbers would be through the roof. So
absolutely,
he's been sensational.
My only other question is, what do we think about the Pelicans? Zion still not back, still overweight, foot injury still hampering him. If Zion, like obviously hypothetically speaking, doesn't return to the Pelicans, is that the biggest missed opportunity of all time?
Yep.
I'd have to be close to.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, you think you go from Davis to Zion, like you're going from two great players, and then they've got nothing out of it.
Because like when Zion came out, he was in high school and he was already predicted to be number one pick, like just starting high school. Like he was so far ahead. Like there hadn't been a gap until like LeBron, I think, a gap that wide between the first pick and everybody else. So I think if he doesn't return and like if they have to release him and he bounces around team, like Kwame Brown comes to mind where he had numerous injuries. Greg Oden, same thing. Numerous injuries, traded around and then basically had to end his career. It'll be a shame, and I think the Pelicans really need him to do something, especially this year.
Yeah.
They've traded away Lonzo, they traded away a few other pieces.
I think the other thing, like that was sort of talked about in the media though before Zion had even sort of started his NBA career though too, because they were like the way his body is compared to the movements that he's doing just won't work for the duration of his like a long career.
That longevity.
Yeah.
But I think as a professional, he needed to realise that, just like Joel Embiid did when he knew he was going to be hurt every second game. And he's in the last, this year and last year, I think he's played the most he's played all up, like of all his NBA games, because he's actually looking after his body. And I think that's you got to step into that professional role.
Yeah.
I feel like Zion's had all this hype and all this stuff behind him that he's lost track of that. It can all be taken away so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so do you think it's like a bit of that's just got into his head, like he was the number one draft pick. He was like the new man on the block, like new man on the scene sort of thing. Like it's just sort of gotten to his head, and he's just forgotten that. Yeah, like you said, it can just be taken away from you so quickly, and like you can just go from being the top dog just to sort of into oblivion, sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
But honestly, if you're David Griffin and the Pelicans, you got to think your two sort of crown jewels would be Ingram and Zion. And
absolutely.
I don't know if Zion sings his own, if the organization's, trying to do everything they can, but you think if they can keep those two and they keep them happy, if they get them to, in the decision making with the front office and everything else about what players they can bring in, to keep them there and to sort of push for some playoff games, like you think they've got to do everything they can in their power to keep those boys.
Yeah.
But as you're saying,
or do you trade Zion and just go all out on Ingram?
I don't think he can trade Zion.
Yeah.
At the moment, he's by far the heaviest player in the NBA. Like, it's not even close. Like, they're saying if they did their weigh measurements now, he'd probably be like 20 pound over anyone else, 30 pound or something over anyone else.
Do you boys think Zion would do this at another franchise though? Like, say he got picked by, another franchise like the Timberwolves or somebody.
I'll tell you what, a franchise that would have been a good choice for him would have been the Spurs.
With Pop,
There's no way he would have been allowed. He would have lost weight when he came back. Like, that's I understand. Like, I think part of the blame has to go to the Pelicans medical staff. It's part of their job description, but at the same time, it's not. I mean, it's a really grey area where it's well, how far do they need to go into that person's personal life when it's off season, when it's got nothing to do with the NBA. It's hard. It's really hard.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's supposed to be a professional athlete. So a lot of that onus does fall back on him. So like
how many careers are ended before they even start through injury? You've got to look after yourself, and this bloke isn't injured necessarily. Like, he is, but you can't tell me that the weight isn't a factor. He needs to manage himself. Like, we joke around like LeBron has two chefs. Yeah, LeBron has two chefs, and he's also been the best player in the NBA for 20 years. It's not a coincidence.
Clip that, guys. Clip that. We heard it. No, but I see what you're saying though too. Like even Embiid went out and got a chef and looked after himself. But like, we've seen like players like Dwight Howard, even Embiid as well, sort of break down early in their career. And like, it could very easily go that way for Zion if he doesn't pick up his game and get back on track.
They break down more physically. I think he's like the weight's a bigger issue for me than just battling.
Well, that's still physically though too. Like, it's just a matter of
me.
He's always been big, but he has the ability to change it round and like make himself a more durable player too. Which is what the Pelicans really need him to do. If they want to hold on to him.
He needs to be on the court a lot.
Yeah, and considering his style of play too, it's very different to a lot of players. I mean, he's compared a lot to Charles Barkley because of his aggressive driving style. He's also very explosive. Like, a lot of things that don't play well for oversized big men. It's exactly why Joel Embiid's catered his style now. I mean, like, he shoots way more threes than he ever has, but he's also ability to shoot from the mid range, and he definitely gets in the post. He gets down, and he tries to dunk, and he tries to go in hard, but it's not every play. But also, he looks after his body a lot better. And certain organizations, like for example Memphis Grizzlies, they need to be praised for the way that they handle not just their youth coming through, but their older players as well. They do a lot of things like Spurs, Grizzlies. They look after a lot of their players in how they're managed, and you can see it now. Like with Ja Morant, like he's got the highest field goal percentage within the paint of any player in the NBA. I mean, it's ridiculous for a guard that's like 6'3", 6'2". And it all comes down to his conditioning is great. Jared Jackson's conditioning's always been great. but those guys coming out of college didn't necessarily have awesome conditioning. And they've really adjusted their style to that. And so there's a lot of teams that are really professional and really good at doing it. And I just don't think Pelicans are one.
Yeah. And even like, I reckon the ultimate person that's changed their career, changed their style is Derrick Rose. Like, not too many can compete with his form at the minute is sensational. And he had to recreate his entire body, battle injuries. He's gone super, super professional on it. And look what he's doing for the Knicks.
Yeah.
Like, he's had 2 careers.
Yeah.
Like, so it's possible.
Yeah. Just one quick question about the Warriors, boys. Do you think the reason why their record is so good is because they're that good? They're the real deal? Or do you think it's just a fluke at the minute?
No, I think it's hard to deny where they're at because of the way they're playing. Like,
Snakeo and I told you got to watch out for Steph.
Yeah, is Will listening to us?
Yeah,
No,
he's gonna be a threat.
The Lakers will win. No.
He's been.
Mate, you were the one that said the Lakers would win.
But the role players have stepped up, like all of them, and I think he's just taken them with him at the moment. So he's been terrific.
Yeah,
James Wiseman's been really quiet, but contributing well and efficiently, which I think that's the most important, because it's the most important thing to Golden State. It's all about efficiency. If your efficiency ratings through the roof and you're only taking 2 shots, they don't care. It's why they're a perennial winner, because it's all about the efficiency. It's all about efficiency.
And I think they're just playing the best sort of version of team basketball that you can play, really. I think that's the big factor. Like, I mean, Steph's the greatest shooter in the game ever, but he doesn't have that ego. He's always happy to pass that ball and get other players involved. Like, don't get me wrong, I still think they're great, but I just think it's going to be interesting to see how they go against some tougher competition, because I don't think they've actually played that many great teams yet.
Who are you worried about?
They've played OKC twice. They've played a couple of those scrub teams a couple of times.
The Lakers a couple of times, so I think.
Yeah, but Lakers are scrubs at this point in the season, mate. I wouldn't say. I just think it'll be interesting to see how they go against harder teams, and also to see how they go when Clay's back, because I think they're only going to get stronger with Clay back.
Yeah. So what matchup are you excited to watch them play, Coxie?
Look, I'd really like to see them play probably a team like the Nets. I think that'd be a really good game to watch.
They actually play the Nets tomorrow now that you said that.
Today? That's hectic. So I'd like to see how they go. And it'll be good to see how they go without Clay.
So they've played the Hawks, they've played the Bulls, they've played the Hornets. They played the Hornets twice, sorry. They've played the Grizzlies, they've played the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Trailblazers.
Yeah, you're right, Coxie. But, yeah, I don't know. Some of those.
I'm not saying they're not the real deal. They're pretty good. It's just going to be interesting to see how they do go against the tougher opponents like your Phoenix Suns and your Bucks.
The matchup on the Suns for me is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
But,
absolutely.
I think it is actually. I actually think the Dallas Golden State matchup will be crazy.
Yeah.
And as the season progresses, I want to see how they match up against Denver, because I want to see what Wiseman can do against arguably one of the best centers in the league.
Yeah.
So
I want to see how they go against the Heat, because the Heat have the best 3-point defensive rating ever, I think. So I'd love to see them go against a team like that.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's an animal. Whoever he gets marked up against is going to be having a long night. So him versus Steph or whoever they play it.
Yeah.
It'd be fascinating to watch that.
Very good.
Very good. I think the only other news that sort of come out is Luka has re-injured that ankle that he did last year. I think he would only be out for a few games, but that'll be interesting to see where Dallas ends up after that time off. Also, Westbrook is looking, or not looking, but the team's looking to trade him off places as well too. So it's all moving and shaking at the minute, boys.
Can I just
But,
say, just quickly, the one thing about this table here that doesn't shock me, Sacramento at 10th. That's the most just stable thing in the world, man.
Yep, sure is.
Would
Would only be
We
more
continue to
stable
do
if they
so?
were 11th, just outside the playoff picture.
No, they've got to give you a little bit of hope.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. It is early on.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised if they move into that 7-6 spot and then just drop to 11.
Right at the very end.
Yeah.
No, don't be silly, mate. Buddy Hill to keep you there.
Marvin Bagley, yeah,
Yeah, Marvin Bagley.
great pick he was. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, very good. I think that's a wrap up for the NBA for this week. And we will move on to the news. So we've had a few news things come out this week. And I think we'll start with the most exciting of them. Stako, Australia won the T20 World Cup after we said that they wouldn't make it past the semis.
Yeah, well, there was a few things that sort of went our way to get us into the final and for us to win it. The fact of the matter is that we won the toss. So, of the last 8 games played at that stadium, the team that batted second won every game.
Wow.
So, massive advantage. So, the fact that we won the toss both times against Pakistan firstly and New Zealand in the final really set us up, because batting did become easier as the game went on. But saying that, there's only twice 170 got chased down, and that was Australia chasing it down against Pakistan and New Zealand. So 2 tremendous efforts in their own. Mitch Marsh was just outstanding, player of the match in the final, but that could have gone to anyone. It could have gone to Joshy Hazelwood, who had 3 for 14 or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, it was 3 for 16 for Hazelwood. Yeah, it was incredible. Adam Zampa, he only got 1 for in that game, but he was unlucky not to be player of the tournament. Yeah, David Warner walks away with that accolade of player of the tournament. And after the criticism of him early, tremendous turnaround, because if you think to the IPL, which we don't cover, but in the IPL, he was dropped from his club side for poor form. Ridden off in this, Australia need to look in another direction. And he comes out, he's the 3rd highest run scorer in the tournament. And yeah, player of the series. So tremendous effort from D Warner. 3 Aussies made the team, and I've talked about all of them. The team of the tournament, that's Dave Warner, Adam Zampa, and Josh Hazelwood. All extremely deserving. Josh Hazelwood come across from an IPL victory, so he was awesome in that, and he was awesome in the final of this. So yeah, it's our first ever T20 World Cup, and it's the last piece of the puzzle for Australia. We now own every trophy. Well, we've owned every trophy. I think the only one we want now is the Test Championship, which has only ever happened once. So it's a pretty new concept, and we'll look to get that back soon.
Thoughts on
really weird? Sorry,
Snake. I just had a quick question while we were talking about Dave Warner.
Yeah.
He's come under a lot of fire even after winning player of the tournament. A lot of people saying that even though his batting was great, obviously he said there was 2 players ahead of him in the total runs.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that criticism of? I agree that his bounce back was awesome, as he said. Like, he had a terrible spurt in the IPL where he's been dropped and the rest of it, and I think there was a bit of a spout or something in with the coaching staff or something like that.
Yeah, so there's always been a stigma around him about in the dressing shed that he's not always the most loved person. In regards to him being the 3rd highest run scorer and player of the tournament, I think a 50 in the semi and a 50 in the final helped him. The fact that we beat Pakistan, which had the 2 leading run scorers in it, I think that helped him as well. the one for me that was unlucky is probably Adam Zampa, who
Yeah.
I think is the best leg spinner in the world, and probably the best white ball bowler in the world at the minute, which sounds really weird saying that Adam Zampa is the best at anything because he's been so shit for so long. But yeah, so it's for me like it's a deserved title for Warner, to tell you the truth.
And do you, like, for all you boys, like, I know I feel like it should come from not necessarily the team that wins it all, but at least the team that goes like deep,
Right
like,
through.
especially in this circumstance. Like, it was one win out of the group into the final.
Yeah.
I think a team that goes to the grand final has to have the player of the tournament.
Yeah, and not trying to take anything away from Pakistan, but they come through a pool that was extremely easy.
Yeah.
So Australia's pool, Pakistan, they had to beat India, which they were tough, but they didn't make the final two. So like they had it quite easy. They come through with New Zealand as well. Australia had to beat the West Indies, South Africa, England. Like it was stacked.
Yeah.
So if you sort of put those calculations into it a little bit as well, Australia had the tougher run. Saying that, Pakistan didn't come out of it without achieving anything. Because Babar Azam goes to become the first person since Kohli in 2017. So he's now the number one batsman in ODIs and T20s, which is a top achievement. So that's like crazy for someone from Pakistan. And Babar's he's so young. He was in the team of the tournament. And the captain of that side, they're going to have a lot of success. And the crazy thing about this World Cup is that the next World Cup is in 12 months.
Yeah.
So this was meant to be played 2 years ago. The next T20 World Cup is next year.
Yeah.
So it's to get it back on schedule. So it's a really quick turnaround. So you watch Pakistan and New Zealand be extremely competitive in that.
Yeah.
Just a crazy little side note before we go off the cricket. Australia's last 5 T20 series, we didn't win any of them. We lost to Bangladesh, we lost to the West Indies, we lost to India, we lost to New Zealand, and we lost to someone else that we should have beaten. Which says two things to me. It says, one, we're playing too much cricket at the same time because we can't pick our best strength team for the T20 tournaments. It also shows that we are a real tournament team. So like we taper our team and we get our squads ready for World Cups. So we were happy to blood young players in those series that didn't really mean anything. And then that's where we find someone like Mitch Marsh who can bat 3, who he did that in the West Indies, and he was the only one that did anything. And then he wins us a World Cup final. So even though we may not have won the series as leading into the World Cup, it was definitely the right preparation because it had us absolutely tapering at the perfect time. So for me, great World Cup.
Very good. Well, with that, we'll move on to the next bit of news. And we had Valentino Rossi announcing his retirement this year and had his final race and finished 10th, I believe. So, Snake, I'll hand it over to you. But good result for Valentino, a legend of the sport.
He's been one of the greats for so long. So he is the GOAT of MotoGP. Like, there's no one that really comes close to him. I think the next highest amount of titles is 5, and he's got 9. So like he's blown that out of the water. But some numbers for him. So he's got 9 world titles. He's won 115 races, been on 235 podiums, 65 poles, 96 for fastest laps, for 432 GP starts. So like he's been an absolute animal. He's won world titles on 3 different bikes. Like he's.
You think those stats only dwindled towards the end because he's not on a very competitive bike either.
Yeah, but the bike he's on now, he owns the team.
Yeah,
like that's how like he bought the team, set it up, and now like he's the best person in the world to ride it.
Yeah.
So you watch for them to have success next year after he hops off the bike and spends more time in that aspect of the race game, because there's not too many people that know how to win better than Valentino.
Absolutely. And good luck to him in his future endeavors. Moving on, we had, well, just before we get into the Steven Gerrard news, we had our little mate Dylan Alcott announcing his retirement from wheelchair tennis. I think he finishes off as like one of the best players to ever have played the wheelchair arena. So
is he's gonna play the Australian Open, isn't he?
So he's retiring after the Australian Open next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was the idea that he can finish on home turf and hopefully go out with a win.
Yeah.
But no, very good for him.
Great career.
Yeah, absolute legend. And moving on, we have Steven Gerrard has been announced as the Aston Villa manager. Snako, what's the ETA on your new Aston Villa jersey?
Well, mate, sales, this will shock people, sales of the jersey skyrocketed last week. So I'm waiting till June next year because they're in such high demand. But I look forward to it arriving. And I look forward to supporting my new team next year. Who are we? Aston Villa. Yeah. I look forward to supporting Aston Villa next year.
At least they got better juniors than Liverpool, mate.
What are you talking about, mate? Liverpool has all the juniors.
Exactly.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, it was also announced. Sorry, while we're on the subject, I think it was like the next day after we did our last pod that it was announced that Newcastle has signed a new manager.
Yeah.
So they took in Howe from. He'd previously done a couple of stints, I think, at Brighton, and he also done. Can't remember the team he was before that.
Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think it was
he was
at Bournemouth for a while. Yeah. And then Burnley, he was an assistant, I think, there. So, so interesting take. He's done reasonably well for Bournemouth. I mean, they're a mid-tier team sort of thing. I think he's done basically what they expected him to do. Be interesting to see how he goes moving forward. I think this might be a move to try and help bolster their youth academy and to help bolster their young players coming through and any new players arriving, because I feel like that he'll be a sort of a welcome face for those newer, younger players, particularly. So they might be heading down that path that we talked about, investing in their youth to try and bring up the amount of money that they can spend through that and
long-term sort of sustained success.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be like that stepping stone for the next manager. Like he'll do like that role where he's building up the youth, and then they'll do what Man City and Chelsea did, like to send all their youth out to get experience, and in that way they can get players in as well. So I think that's sort of the way they look like they're heading at the minute.
Yeah.
Smart, because it worked for them.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Well, I think with that is the end of episode 61 of the Pick 199 podcast. We thank you for listening, and we'll catch up with you next time.
See ya.
Cheers.